Install the center fiberglass piece on the rear surround of the Dodge Charger. I've already pre-fit this piece with self-tapping screws. I mounted the window in to make sure I liked the positioning where the window was. I did the side pieces as we discussed in the other video. So now I'm going to take this out, and it just slides out of this gap here. I'm going to pull this out. I scuffed the leading edge, and I'm going to apply Bondo in this case. You can use windshield adhesive, whatever you want. Put something on here as a filler, and I'm going to slide it back inside where it belongs, let it kick overnight, and then flush rivet to the top of the roof before I do my bodywork. I'll mix up, in this case I'll mix up my Bondo. I scuffed the inside edge of the Charger sheet metal so that the Bondo or the adhesive will stick. And it should be pretty straightforward pushing this in there. Let it ooze all over the place. We don't really mind. This is not really a sealer. This is just something to hold it into place and to make sure that when you rivet, you don't pull and get gaps in your part. So I'll put a relatively, I use about 1/8 of an inch of Bondo. You can use a good 1/2 inch bead of silicone or, panel bond adhesive if you wish. Remember, most of this is going to get squished out when we push it into the gap. You can tell I have my cruddy clothes on today. And in the middle here, I'm adding a little bit more because there looks to be, when I dry fit this, there seems to be a little bit more of a gap in the middle. So I want to use up that gap with a little bit of the filler before I do the final body work on the car. You can do the final body work even if this thing is all wrinkled, if the sheet metal gets all wrinkled, it doesn't really matter. Your final body work will fix all of that at the end anyway. But there we go. So there's a nice layer of Bondo. Find my edge. Kind of wiggle that into place. As long as you feel like your left to right is good. And then just take your squeegee and kind of squish it in there. Make sure, pull away a little bit of it. Make sure that your scribe line is still where you want it. In this case, I'm spot on, so I'm gonna just squeeze Bondo into the edge. And just make sure I like the final shape of this. Now, we're going to grind most of this off from the outside. I just want to make sure there's no change in gap. So I'm kind of just squeegeeing it in. Notice in the middle here, there's a little bit of a gap that's being filled by the Bondo. That's fine. We're going to rivet this together. I'll take off my gloves here, and I'll try to find my original screw holes here. I'll try to find so I know I'm in the right spot. There we go. And there we do. Now I'm not going to tighten it. I'm just going to pull it down a little bit, and I'll let that kind of sit where it belongs. So those 3 screws are just going to hold the piece in place while that stuff kicks, and that's it. So whether it's windshield adhesive or Bondo or epoxy, whatever you choose to use, I scuffed the underside of the Charger roof. I put my goop on top of the seam. I put it back in place using the original screws. You remember, we test fit this piece before we installed it. I put the screws in place just to make sure I'm at the right distance in and out and left to right. And then I'll let that kick, and that'll be the end of the middle of the rear surround. We're going to rivet the outside edge here to the outside piece, and then the adhesive, the windshield adhesive, really will tie everything together with that rear window after we screw all the pieces together. So that's how you do it, and we'll move on to the side pieces just as we install the rear window.